first of all, let's talk about the Tavares de Melo case. And let's maybe talk a little bit about what motivated the two of you to even write the case study about them. What did you find so particularly interesting about this family that you felt this merits to be recorded? Maybe Maya, you can tell us a little bit more about the impetus behind this.
Absolutely. I mean, I was very struck by this family because they've been together for 100 years. They were just celebrating their centenary. They had evolved over several generations, in their fifth generation now, and they had evolved from being an operating business or having several operating businesses to being a family office and having a whole collection of brands and being entrepreneurial. And yet they are still extremely close as a family. They have chosen to stay together as a family. And I was very struck. This doesn't happen by accident. What is it that they do? What is that magic sauce? Secret sauce, maybe? What are the ingredients that went into this? I was very curious to learn about this.
To me, it speaks to a worldview, I think, that advisors and families have to take, that a lot of them come to a consultant like me and they say, well, we want to create governance, or what sort of governance should we have, or should we have a family council? And what their story tells us is that it isn't one thing, that the governance is a response to a challenge, and the family has to define what's the challenge that they're trying to do and then define the governance for it.
There's a very notable quote from one of the family members stating that the business must come before the family for the family's sake, basically, because if you ensure the continuity of the business, you safeguard the well-being of the family, which is a very typical first generation founders mentality, I would say, that we see often in the first, maybe second generation of a family enterprise. Now, 90 years down the line, Tavares de Melo actually sells its operating business. What happens to that kind of a mindset in a family when operating business becomes family office? So how does that translate? How do you explain that sort of like, after that move to the family office, that family sticking together like that? How do you explain that?
There's a lot in the literature about, are we family first or are we business first? And people are people and they have complex motivations. And I don't see a family, and I don't look at a family business and say, aha, they're family first, they're business first. And in this family, like in most families, they were concerned about the family. They don't want to hurt the family. They don't want to do anything destructive, but they also wanted to have a business. And as they go from, 3 brothers to 7 brothers to and a sister to 27 to 60, they need to bring in more capital. And so to me, it's always a both and. It's never an either or. And we tie ourselves in knots when we say business first or family first. And in this case, they were saying we need to respect the family. It's a complex world and we have to respect the family. We want to be close. We don't want to hurt each other, and we want to have a good business.
I think this is another thing true to the culture of this family that I think is important for everyone, is they offer the freedom to everyone. You can come and invest your money with the family office construct that we are creating, or you can do your own thing. No problem. No rancor, no judgment. It's totally your personal choice. And in that, they really provide freedom and autonomy to people, which they then autonomously choose to exercise in staying with the family, because it kind of makes sense. It doesn't feel like they're being forced together. So that's another thing I noted. Dennis, do you agree with that?
You both come from a very strong governance expertise and governance background. So to come back to governance, like very often, I think as family enterprises, we maybe see governance as something that actually brings more rules and rigidity to something, as opposed to what it is supposed to do, I know in your eyes, which is actually to give this kind of flexibility to a family. So what part of governance is going to help a family actually to manage this kind of a transition successfully? And how does the role of governance change between family business and then family office?
So just to get started on that, I think after all these years, I think my favorite and what I repeatedly see is the successful part of governance is spend time together as a family. Have an annual family holiday, family rituals, family traditions, spend time together as a family. Why? Because we know each other, we enjoy spending time together, we trust each other, and then all these other conversations, should it be a family office, should it not, who's in, who doesn't want to, who's like, whatever, all of these things become much, much easier. So that would be my top one.
Add to that the idea that it's not one conversation, that families get all twisted up about, oh, should we invite the married-ins? Should we have young next generation people there? Who should be in the conversation? And really, the family has to have several conversations. There can certainly be an owner and an elders conversation, but the younger generation sometimes has to get together and say, well, do we want to be together, or do we have energy to go our own ways and have a looser connection? The connection about family first, business first. If it's a both and conversation, you should have a family conversation about what do we want to do as a family.
Absolutely. And so having spent time together, then you need to organize the decision making. And I would say a family council, a family board, a family forum, whatever terminology people like, some group, which could be, if it's a large family, people that are nominated or volunteer to be on that group, whatever their own process is. If it's a small family, I work with many that are first or second generation. It could be the parents and their children are on that group that say, right, there are some of us that are working in, there are some that are not. We're going to meet once a quarter and we're going to share information and we're going to make decisions.
Are we expecting more families having to transition out of operating businesses towards these more flexible models, also because of force majeure? So because we know that certain industries will disappear, we know that certain industries will not be viable options anymore. That's the first. And secondly, in your opinion, is it actually going faster? Are things actually moving faster? Are things actually different? Like, because you talked to the Tavares de Melo and you looked at that case in the early 20th century. I mean, is this century truly faster and more uncertain than what they faced at the beginning of the founding of their business like 100 years ago? What's your view on that?
First of all, I don't think anybody will dispute we are in an era of higher volatility and more great, vast changes than ever before. That is unarguable. So the question is, what is the role of a unified family? And this is where I have an opinion that motivates me in my work. And my opinion is that in this uncertainty, since there are few certainties, one of the ones that we can depend on is the extended family. And sometimes families that sell their business and have a lot of capital are saying, wait a minute, I can lose it in an instant. I don't have anything, I don't really have a clear idea of what to do with it. Let's pool our knowledge and work together and get experts and do something together. So I believe that due to the uncertainty and due to all the change, there is more motivation for families to create something like a family office structure.
And I think that also, whilst there are many challenges being thrown up with, as you say, everything is going at breakneck pace, old truths are being broken and new things are coming up. I'm seeing more and more families saying, where are the opportunities here? And this is one of the hallmarks of successful family ownership, is that constant scanning of the horizon and looking forward, their adaptability, their looking at all these new opportunities. And of course, I mean, you look at all the fields around technology, sustainability, healthcare. I mean, there are food production. I mean, there are many opportunities that are being thrown up. And so there are almost many families that I work with that are looking at the two dimensions, which is how are we running our existing operations, or we're getting rid of them, or we don't want to be in them because we don't think from our values that it's right to continue being in them. And we're looking at new opportunities. So, and the two, talking about the and, which is what we started with, the two can exist together for some time as the situation evolves. And therefore, I would agree with Dennis. I mean, why I'm passionate about my work is I think family ownership is a force for good.
And look at the Tavares de Melo family. What they have is a tradition of values that everybody lives by, not just words, but real deeds. And they really trust each other. And the new generation grow up and they build trust. And I think that Tavares de Melo illustrates the special things that a family can have that can make incredible value in a world of great uncertainty and great risk.